So welcome to chapter 12 of Positivity Bias. This chapter happens to be one of my favorite because the topic is something that I've spent a lot of time on. And so we'll dive into this one, a couple of stories here. So the story is told of the fall of one of the Hasidim, one of the followers of Menachem Mendel, the third Lubavitcher Rebbe, who was referred to as the Tzemach Tzedek. So the Chassid had a son who was seriously ill. And so someone advised him, go to the Rebbe and ask for a bracha, go to the Tzemach Tzedek and ask for a blessing. So he made his trip with a heavy heart. He made his trip to the Rebbe. In his response for a request for a blessing, so the Tzemach Tzedek told him, Tracht gut wird zein gut. Think good and it'll be good. Tracht gut wird zein gut. I've got a little board plaque over in one of the rooms that my daughter made. It says Tracht gut wird zein gut. And the Chassid tried to internalize these words, take it to heart, and he strove to strengthen his trust in God and to actually visualize a good outcome for his son. And when he returned home, he was shocked to find his son was completely healed and back to his normal self. I find this story interesting because the Chassid was working on himself to have this bitachon, this trust, and to think positively, and yet he was surprised when it actually worked. So there's a kind of a disconnect, but I think what that speaks to is the idea that this concept of Tracht gut wird zein gut, it's an activity. It's an ongoing thing. It's a life journey. It's not something you just turn on and off. It's something that you work on and you practice developing until you start to see the fruits of your work. But it's a life labor. It's a long lifetime service to try and build that tool.
I when I read this chapter, I said to myself, boy, as a cop, I usually see the worst case scenario. And if it doesn't happen, that's great.
Best case is when the worst case doesn't happen.
The best case, I guess, yeah, is I see the worst possible outcome, and anything better than that is, how should I put it? This is great. Yeah.
Well, maybe as you were telling the story, I was thinking maybe the Rebbe was surprised only because he thought those thoughts, if he was going to affect change, would only apply to himself, rather than to other people. So he might have been surprised that it actually affected someone else rather than just himself.
The Chassid went home to his son. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the power of his thoughts having an effect on his own son. Yeah. How does this play out in the medical field, Zev?
Well, obviously you have to have positive thoughts when you're taking care of your patients. If you think all hope is lost, you're not going to make any progress or have any success in taking care of your patients. You have to have good thoughts.
Chapter that if a patient thinks that he's going to have a positive outcome, it may help in his healing.
Yes. That occurs on many levels, not just at every level, from a placebo medication to every aspect of care. If someone has a negative, that's been demonstrated over and over again. They have negative thoughts, this treatment's not going to work, or I'm not going to survive the surgery, or whatever it may be, then they're not going to have a good outcome.
I have a friend who he's not a strong believer in homeopathic remedies, but he said, never underestimate the power of a placebo.
Right.
So he's not giving credit to the homeopathy, but even placebos, that's again, Tracht gut wird zein gut. If you think it's going to work, it's the blessings that come down, right? One of the things
I believe in food as medicine. That's some truth to that. And to use a Catholic, gluttony is a sin. I tend to believe that too. I moderate my diet, and I think this is going to keep me healthy. Maybe that's, I think, positive about it. So therefore it's positive.
There you go. So the question becomes up, and this is actually this question is actually dealt with not only in this book, but in the book of Shara B'Tochen, right? In the book, this book treats this concept, this question that we're going to dive into at length. It goes into the topic. What right do we have to think it'll be good when we really know what we're deserving of and what we're not deserving of? So what right do we have to just believe that, yeah, it's going to be good, it's going to be revealed good?
Well, we don't know when we're performing mitzvahs, we don't know what the reward is going to be. How many, do you get 2 points for performing this mitzvah and 10 for performing some other mitzvah? You don't know. Are they all equal? The hardest one that I've read is Kavod es avicha v'esimecha, honor your father and your mother. And the easiest one is not to take the baby bird from its mother's nest. So, are they equal in terms of their reward? We don't know, but we try to do the best that we can. We do good things, and we have a good outcome, and that we're blessed along the way.
Oh, you said that last one just because nobody wants to climb a tree to get the little baby bird.
Yeah, but the Talmud talks about that. The Talmud talks about it, absolutely. But what the author of Shara HaBitochen, what he talks about is, and this is the part where there's actually a logical piece to this. It's fascinating to me, is that when in the laws of nature you cannot see a good result, nevertheless you have bitochen. So what is that bitochen? That bitochen, that trust, is that God is infinite and God can do anything, and it's really not a problem. And when you put that level of trust in God, then God has the opportunity to say, well, in the merit of that alone, the fact that you have that much bitochen is enough reason to make it good for you. It's like this direct conduit. You open up this conduit of, I know what it looks like, but I absolutely have bitochen in God. I know that's going to be good, absolute trust. And God says, all right, I'll prove you right.
There's an interesting subchapter to this chapter where a guy wants to get a blessing for his surgery, and the rabbi says, I wish you had said that you didn't need. You wished you would a blessing that you didn't need surgery.
Right. Think bigger.
Where is your trust at?
Right. You have to think bigger. And that's the Tracht good. Think good. But when we talk about, we're going to slide into Kabbalah stuff for just a second here. But when we talk about creation, we talk about Chesed and Gevura. We talk about Chesed as being expansive, and we talk about Gevura as being restrictive. And there's always this balance going between the two, expanding and contracting. It's always this balance going between the two. And what the Rebbe is teaching us here is that if we have to expand our betochen, our trust. And there'll be times when that's balancing back and forth, but the expansion concept is something you can take on. So it's the idea of taking on a bigger perspective of what's possible, and then the contractions might come from there, but they're coming from a whole new plateau. So it's growing and knowing that if God is infinite, then He can do anything, right? What's the problem with that one? So,
shall we move on?
I remember, yes, I remember. There's a story. I don't know that it's printed here, but there was a story of someone in California. I won't mention names, and he was diagnosed with the cancer, and it was shown on the X-rays and everything else. And he went straight to the Rebbe in New York, and he stood outside the Rebbe's office waiting for the Rebbe to go to afternoon services. And as the Rebbe came out of his office and was walking, the few yards to the shul from his office, this gentleman stepped up a little bit, not into the Rebbe's way, but stepped up to where the Rebbe is and said that I've been diagnosed with cancer. And the Rebbe looked him in the eye and said, just, and so the chassid took that as a great sign. It's nothing. The Rebbe says, nothing, done. Daven Mincha, caught the next plane back to California. By the time he showed up for his next oncology meeting, there was actually nothing on the X-ray. There must have been a mistake. At least they thought there must have been a mistake, but no, it was gone. It was gone. So, and in this case, if we sit down and try to think about what was the Tracht gut with zein gut here, it wasn't that that he didn't Tracht gut with zein gut, didn't think positively on his own initially. He got scared, but the Rebbe gave him that confidence to think big and think broad and to forget it. And so there's amazing. I think that's nothing short of a miracle.
Yeah, that or like you said, maybe there was a mistake, but that worked out well.
Yeah.
There are journeys that we take in life. Like when I started my training, 4 years of medical school and 6 years of residency, I could tell you many times along the way when you hit a bump in the road and you're asking yourself, should I continue down this path? And you pray and you look ahead, you try to find the light at the end of the tunnel and keep working towards that objective, and hope that you make it through. But you gotta have to have a positive attitude along the way, otherwise you'll never make it to the finish line.
I can do this. I can hang out. Yeah, that's how I've even in war. I said to myself, I'm gonna get through this.
Yeah, positive attitude.
It's a bad day today, but maybe tomorrow will be better.
There's a story you remind me of it. I may have said it already, but there's a story. A letter I saw written once. It was a Civil War letter, and it was like a 5 or 6 page letter. And it was a letter from a soldier to his brother. And the soldier had been an adjutant to a general. And as they went into a battle, the general was taken out of battle within the first 5 minutes. So this adjutant really didn't have any assignment now. He spent the entire battle traveling back and forth across the battle line and giving messages back and forth, communicating, helping the officers communicate across the entire battle line. His horse was shot out from under him. He did get wounded, a number of things along the way, but in his letter to his brother, in which he really fully describes the entire battle, because he had a view of the battle better than anybody else. And he writes the full story. In the story, he says, others had asked him, wasn't he terrified? Riding back and forth across all these, this is the battlefield, not the field itself, a battle, but behind their own lines. And he said the thought never dawned on him to be afraid, because he was raised to understand that there's a God in the world. And when it's your time, it's your time. But when it's not, it's not. And so it never dawned on him to be afraid. And I thought there was a tremendous insight into bitachon, of trust.
Is a Jewish guy?
Nope.
Interesting.
No. So back inside the book. So sometimes I love the title of this section of this paragraph. End of the world. You know, there's so many times, and Zeb, you're just kind of describing it. You get a bump in the road and you think it's over, like it's the end of the world, right? And so there's this beautiful example here. Rabbi Yeshua Benjamin Gordon, Zichrono Livracha, he was at a point in their lives. He and his wife faced a very serious challenge, and they were at their wits' end. So they wrote to the Rebbe, and they literally a 10-page letter explaining all the details of their impossible situation. They received, the day the letter arrived to the Rebbe's office, they received a call from the Rebbe's secretary with an answer. The Rebbe's answer was, time and again in your holy work as emissaries, you have imagined that the situation you find yourself in is the end of the world.
I meant to ask you what shluchim meant.
Emissaries, yeah. But
Answered.
then you saw how the situation flipped over and became visible and revealed good. You've seen this with your own eyes, right? You must, in all cases, follow the command of the Tzemach Tzedek, Tracht gut wird zein gut. Think optimistically and things will turn out well. And so the Rebbe's prompt response was very fascinating. Rabbi Gordon said, the answer is a teaching I try to remember every day. As bad as things may look, they looked bad last time too, and everything turned out. So I think we can all share, examples. I think we can think of examples where we thought it was, disastrous and then, turned around.
Yeah, well, you skipped over that story about the guy from the 50s that hears that his father is had a heart attack and can't get through to Israel because there's very, very limited what do you call it, phone service at that time. Probably underground, undersea cable and limited to how many calls it can take. And he goes to see the Rebbe about it, and the Rebbe basically tells him to have a positive attitude. It's going to be fine, and that's on a Thursday night, and he finds out a couple days later from his mother. He finally gets through that his father is doing okay, better. And when did this happen? Thursday night. So from that point on, he had that positive attitude, and it played out that way.
I think a part that you've just brought up again, and Zev had mentioned previously about patient, physician and patient story. We're totally connected. The fact that we put on tefillin here in America, that strengthens the soldiers in Israel and protects them. The fact that the physician is thinking about the patient and that starts to heal the patients as well. The fact that the son starts thinking positively about his father, and at that time, that's when things start changing. It's because we're all united. We're all tracting together. One of the things that I won't mention any names here, but one of my friends, who's a professor of theoretical quantum physics, talked about in quantum entanglement. Quantum entanglement talks about that when two particles have had a connection, then that connection exists across time and space. And it seems so much exactly what we're talking about here, where Jews are united across the world, whether we're present in a situation or not. The fact that something happens and we start saying Tehillim, to say Psalms, and then a solution comes up, it's because we're all entangled. We're all totally entangled. And that entanglement allows us the opportunity to daven and pray on behalf of someone and make a difference, to do a mitzvah in someone's honor, that makes a difference. And in fact, it's not only across this world, but it's across to the next world as well. Because when someone passes away for 11 months, we say Kaddish. And we do extra mitzvahs. And on a yard site, we say L'chaim and make extra blessings. And we give tzedakah. When we say Yizkor in Shul on the holidays,
good deeds in someone's memory.
We add to tzedakah in that person's merit, and it has an effect on the other side. So the connection we have is phenomenal. I think it's that tremendous connection that if we if we actualize it, if we put energy into it, it can have a powerful, good effect.
We had this past Shabbos, well, this past Sunday was my father's yahrzeit. And so I sponsored a Kiddush in Shul. It was the first Kiddush since COVID.
Oh, yeah.
And people were thanking me up and down. And the people who, it's all done in house. It's not catered from outside. The people, did all the work putting it together, thanked me that they finally had the opportunity to put together a Kiddush. And so it was just a ripple
Of positive thinking and good things. Yep. And all that is chus for your father, Allah Shem. That's beautiful.
that I didn't anticipate.
Yeah.
That's nice. And you're right. That's going to be a nice time when we finally do that too. Have a Kiddush on Shabbat. We haven't had that in ages.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a beautiful thing when we all come together and have that opportunity to share. So there's the idea here of that Tracht gut with zein gut. When the world was created, the process of actualization, where an initial spiritual idea and a spiritual energy becomes manifest in a physical reality. Yesh me ayin, something from nothing. God wanted the world to exist, thought about it, spoke about it. There it is, right? Thought, speech, action, all one process. The fruit of our experience and actions does not just appear out of nowhere. It is rooted in our thought, speech, and action, which is the ultimate an expression of the seed of nutrients contained within our thoughts that are planted within the soil of our soul. So it's our thinking good that actually creates and manifests the actual good. So it shouldn't be surprising. It shouldn't be surprising that Tracht gut wird zein gut, think good and it will be good. But yet we are sometimes still astonished when it actually works. Jeff, you were going to say?
Well, I mean, right there in Genesis, God has seemingly the universe is empty, void. The first thing he does is creates light. And he says, it thinks or whatever says, let there be light. And there is. I mean, that's how we've written it. I don't know if that's how we meant it, but
Yep, that's the process.
I mean, a lot of people also inherently skeptic. So they think, this outcome is already predetermined. My actions aren't going to make a difference going forward. So I'll just wait to see how it plays out. And that's, I think, a lot of people.
Our future is a game of chess. We can change things. I don't think anything's predetermined, but there's just a number of variations.
No, I'm saying a lot of people think along those lines. I'm not saying I'm one of them.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that I've encountered quite a number of people who think along those. I believe that there's nothing they can do to change a given outcome.
And that's I've had someone tell me how jealous he is that I believe that I make a difference.
Yeah.
And I thought how sad it is that he doesn't. I mean, that's got to be hard to live with, thinking that, whatever you say or do doesn't make a difference. No, actually, what we think and say and do actually makes a big difference.
I would say so. We all react with others, and even little things. One thing can affects another. It's like.
Well, he ends out this chapter, I think, also with an interesting idea. In our over half a century of life for each of us, we each have been here more than half a century, and we have seen the most wild things actually happen. I was talking with my cadets just last night. I remember the men walking on the moon. I remember watching that on a black and white TV. and it was a fantasy come true. It was incredible. And it was like, it was a fantasy. And yet here it is, right? So with all the advances in technology and sciences, why is it astounding when something comes up that can blow your mind? I'll just share this for just a second, but sometimes it's one of those things that even that sometimes the things that have been used in one field, when they become available for the populace, right? So I have a massive ear infection, and it literally shut the whole ear canal, right? But there's a digital otoscope that's available for home use that plugs into your camera, your cell phone.
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
So when I went into the urgent care clinic, I came in saying, here's what my left ear looks like. They were like, how did you do that? I said, it's an otoscope. It's a digital otoscope, right?
So you didn't actually have to go. You just could have sent them the picture and telemed conference. So
yeah, but it needed a treatment.
Years too.
It needed a treatment because it also had to, well, we won't get into the gory details, but it definitely
you talked about you spoke about the moon landing. I actually went to an Apollo launch, one of the latter ones. While I was still living in Pennsylvania, drove down to Florida with a group of like-minded friends, and we watched the launch. The closest you can get is 3.5 miles from the launch pad, and you see the Saturn V rocket, which is 525 feet tall, leave the ground, and the command module and the lunar module end up 250,000 miles away, landing on the moon. It's incredible with all the things that can happen in between. And Apollo 13 demonstrated all the bad things that can happen potentially in between.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I got a monkey wrench to throw into our think good, and it's gonna be good, because I remember in 1986 when I was a officer at Fort McClellan. We took a bunch of students at the P school to see the launch of the Challenger, and thought this is going to really impress them, and it's really going to be cool, and this is a great mission. There's a Jewish astronaut, and oh, what I'll never forget it when the thing blew up as it was going up. That was a Challenger, I think, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we didn't know what to say. We were all just kind of, let's hope that they're going to be okay. But it was a tragedy.
Yeah. There's always things that are beyond our capacity to understand, but the Talmud tells us that there will come a time with Mashiach where we'll be able to see the good. And in retrospect, some of those things will be amazing to see. I anxiously await that, because I'd love to see how those things all pan out to be good. And in the Hasidic approach to joy, we covered a story about Eliyahu Hanavi and a rabbi who followed him, and he didn't understand why Eliyahu Hanavi was blessing people. It didn't make any sense to him, and then he found out that what the details that Rabbi Eliyahu Hanavi knew about the situation that he didn't know showed off that those things were actually good things, that the blessings he was giving him. One example was they went to a poor couple, and the poor couple invited them in for the night and housed them and everything. They didn't have a lot to share, but what they had, they shared. And then as they were leaving, Eliyahu blessed them. After they left the house, looking back, Eliyahu Hanavi blessed them that their cow should die. What kind of a blessing is that? Right?
Yeah.
So in retrospect, when the rabbi needed an explanation, he couldn't take it any longer. Eliyahu went back and explained each of the different details. In that particular case, there had been a decree that the wife should die. The cow was their only source of income. The milk from the cow was their only source of income. So the fact that if the cow dies, it was a redemption for her. She lived because the cow died.
Huh.
There was redemption there. So, you know, there's so many questions that we have, so many things that are feel so definitely bad,
Uh-oh.
that it's going to be astounding. It's going to be amazing. We're totally a mind-blowing experience to be able to look back on all those negative things and see that that was really truly positive. I mean, that's going to be a mind-blowing event. But I'm ready. I'm ready for it.
Just the fact that we can communicate like this right now is pretty amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a phenomenal concept that, you know, here we are and having our class and you know,
I don't have
virtually
to
face to
go to
face.
your house to have this conversation, and I have to fly to see Zev. That would be about a 4-hour deal. Yeah.
Going down, see Benji.
This month later.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, yeah, I think that the conclusion of this part of the chapter was, why should it be so hard to believe things could be incredibly good when we've seen incredible things happen in our lifetime? Phenomenal, incredible, things you could not believe in our own lifetime. And so who knows, around the bend, something that someone's working on could turn around and be astronomically different. You know, I don't, to me, one of the astounding things of our current year is the speed with which the vaccine came out.
Yeah, that's
Knowing historically how long that takes, this is phenomenal. This could have been so much worse.
true. Look at what's happening with India. So I hope it's getting better there.
Amen. Amen. But I think it comes back to, you know, putting our forces together, putting our minds together, working together. That's what makes the difference. When Kennedy announced the space program, it was a fantasy. We had no idea how to do that, but it became a race, and all resources were put towards that.
Yeah, well, we're getting better at as we put our resources together and our advanced knowledge compared to the past. And we were just able to do so many things. So God knows what this century will bring.
Exactly. So why shouldn't we be optimistic? It can change overnight.
Well, why shouldn't we? Yeah. Why not be optimistic? It might be a very good century.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for joining. We'll see you guys next week.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Chapter 13 for next week.
Yep. Chapter next week.
Okay.
Take it out.
Bye-bye.